Religious freedom is a precious gift from God, but it has not always been the norm, even among Christian rulers. The early settlers of America were seeking religious freedom when they came here, and they ended up creating a land where religious freedom ultimately spilled over into other freedoms. Our story begins in England with the death of King James I, who was no friend of those who deviated from the state church, including the Puritans.
In 1625, King James I, a persecutor of Christian nonconformists, died. His son, Charles I, ascended to the throne. As bad as James might have been as persecutor, Charles was worse. Within 2 decades, the religious conflict in England grew so severe that the nation was plunged into civil war. The Puritans, led by an independent, Oliver Cromwell, won, and King Charles was beheaded in 1649. Meanwhile, back in 1630, Puritans were leaving England in a great migration that would result eventually in several thousands of them uprooting to the New World, specifically in New England. Thus, the Pilgrims had paved the way for this mass uprooting. For the most part, these Puritans were not your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. These men and women were among the cream of society. They were the well-educated and the well-to-do, but they were religious nonconformists, and they all cherished the biblical concept of covenant, an agreement for self-government under God.
The Puritans were critical to the rise of covenantalism and to republicanism and to American freedom at large. Now you have to say the 17th century was, as historians put it, teeming with freedom. You had the Puritans, yes, but you had the levelers and the ranters and the shakers and the Quakers and the agitators. So they are absolutely decisive in shaping early American freedom.
Earlier, when he had studied at Cambridge University, Puritan leader John Winthrop joined with other like-minded students at Cambridge University, made a covenant with each other, committing themselves to God first and then to each other. Winthrop had a sizable estate which he spent to help further the colony. He lost much material goods, but he was committed to the cause.
Many were the afflictions of this righteous man. He lost much of his estate in a ship and in an house, quickly after his coming to New England, besides the prodigious expense of it in the difficulties of his coming here. Cotton Mather.
This uprooting from their homes and their wider families must have been traumatic. About 100 or so of the original settlers who created Boston in 1630 decided to return to England after several months. However, the vast majority stayed, even as some of their brethren contended with fatal diseases.
Reverend John Winthrop was one of the first great Americans. He is the one that talked about the shining city on a hill. And this is really important to understand, that the American experiment and the idea of self-governance and that objective moral truth is embedded in our society isn't something that just came out of a vacuum or someone woke up with a great idea one day. It was something that came from a long line of understanding biblical truth that has been around eternally.
When they had set sail to America, John Winthrop's wife was not with them. She was pregnant at the time he set sail for America, and they both decided it was better for her to come when it was safe for her and the child. Despite a harsh winter and despite a number of difficulties, John Winthrop wrote a letter to her back in England in which he explained one challenge after another, but then he reminded her of the single purpose of their settlement.
We here enjoy God and Jesus Christ, and is not this enough? John Winthrop.
One of the great Puritan writers, Reverend Cotton Mather, wrote in 1702 how it was the desire for religious freedom that motivated so many of the original settlers to America to come to these shores. And that religious impulse created a land with unprecedented freedom and prosperity. But, Mather noted, religion begat prosperity, and the daughter hath consumed the mother. In our prosperity, we have forgotten God. When you peel back the roots of American freedom, ultimately we see the gospel of Jesus Christ played a leading role, and to lose the gospel is to lose those rights in the big picture. For Providence Forum, I'm Jerry Newcomb.